The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor before Edidiong Chimezie even realized it had left her hand. 1 second it was in her fingers, cool, expensive, the kind of crystal that caught light and turned it gold. The next second it was gone, exploded into 100 glittering pieces at her heels. Like her body had already processed the information and responded before her mind had caught up. Every head on the rooftop turned. The jazz trio paused for half a beat. 30 of Seoul's most powerful people looked toward the sound, then quickly looked away, the way wealthy people always do when something inconvenient happens nearby. Edidiong didn't move. She couldn't, because the man standing beside her, tall, Korean, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent back in Uyo, had just pressed his lips close to her ear and said 5 words in a voice so quiet and so certain it felt less like speech and more like surgery. "Your boyfriend is sleeping with my wife." It rang in her ears. She turned to look at him. Her heart was slamming. Her hands were shaking. But her face, Lord, her face was still. 33 years of being the only black woman in every room, from Uyo markets to Atlanta galleries to Seoul rooftops, had trained her face into something unreadable. And it did not fail her now, even as her entire world was rearranging itself around those 5 words. "Who are you?" she asked. "Jeo-Sun Woo." He picked up a fresh glass from a passing tray and held it out to her, as if offering champagne after detonating a grenade was perfectly normal. "I own this building, among other things." She did not take the glass. "How long?" "For months." His eyes didn't waver. Dark still. The kind of eyes that had seen too much to flinch at anything. "I thought you deserved to know. Most people in my position don't bother." "I'm not most people." "For months." Edidiong stood there and let those 2 words pass through her body like cold water from the Kwa Ibo River. 4 months of Damian Hayes kissing her goodbye in the morning. 4 months of dinner reservations and weekend trips to Jeju. "And I love you," Eddie whispered into her hair at night. For months of a performance so practiced and so thorough she had never once felt the draft from the door he'd left open. She looked at the broken glass on the floor. A waiter was already moving toward it with a cloth. "Thank you," she said to Jeo-Sun Woo. Her voice came out steady. She hated and loved herself for that in equal measure. Then she walked to the elevator, pressed the button, stepped inside, and waited until the doors closed completely before she let her knees buckle. Catching herself on the brass railing with both hands and breathing, just breathing, in the merciless privacy of her own reflection. If that hit you like it hit Edidiong, smash that like button right now. Subscribe and hit the bell because this story is going to destroy you in the best way possible. And drop a comment. What would you have done in her position? Let's talk. Damian Hayes was not home when she got back to the Itaewon apartment. He texted something about clients, something smooth and rehearsed. The kind of lie that comes easy when you've been telling it long enough. Edidiong read the message once, set her phone face down on the granite counter, and stood in the middle of the living room they shared, looking at it like she was seeing it for the first time. That was the thing about betrayal. It didn't just change what was coming. It reached backward and rewrote everything that had already happened. Every memory she had of this apartment now had a second layer, a shadow version she hadn't been able to see until this moment. Damian choosing the art on the walls. Damian deciding which neighborhood. Damian suggesting she leave her photography director position in Atlanta to explore something new in Seoul. Damian. And she had followed because she loved him, because she trusted him, because she had believed with everything in her that they were building something together. She had been building something, just not what she thought. She opened the bedroom closet and pulled down the suitcase from the top shelf. The one she'd packed herself in Atlanta. The one with the small green ribbon tied to the handle so she could spot it at baggage claim. She set it on the bed and opened it and began to pack methodically, quietly, with the particular focus of a woman who had decided that the next thing she did would not be chaos. Her grandmother Mma Ekaette used to say, "When a man show you say him no respect you, no argue am, just waka comet. Argument fit happen for anywhere, but dignity no get duplicate. Once he fall for ground, hard to pick him up again." Edidiong thought of Mma Ekaette as she folded her clothes. She packed her grandmother's photograph, the one she kept on the nightstand, the one Damian used to say was watching him. She packed her camera lenses, her hard drives, her 3 favorite headwraps, and the small beaded bracelet Mma Ekaette had pressed into her hands at the airport in Uyo 2 years ago and said, "Carry this so the new place go no say you get root for aqua ibum soil." She left everything that was his. She left everything that was theirs. She only took what was purely, entirely, unmistakably hers. She was out of the apartment in 40 minutes. She did not leave a note. The hotel in Itaewon was small, clean, and smelled faintly of green tea and polished wood. The woman at the front desk handed over the key card with both hands and a quiet bow. No questions, no judgment. Edidiong rode the elevator to the 5th floor, let herself into the compact room, set her suitcase down, and exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. She changed out of the emerald gown, hung it in the narrow closet. Later she would decide if it deserved to stay or be burned. For now, she sat on the edge of the bed in a simple cotton top and leggings and called Adanna. Adanna picked up on the 2nd ring. It was late afternoon in Lagos, traffic noise and market calls in the background. "Talk to me," she said immediately. No hello, no preamble. The frequency of a sister friend who already sensed the storm. Edidiong told her everything in order, voice low and even. The rooftop gala, the tall Korean man, the 5 words, the shattered glass, the packing, the hotel. She spoke without crying because the tears hadn't yet found their place inside her, and she wasn't ready to go looking. Adanna listened in silence until the end. Then, "Are you safe right now?" "Yes." "Are you still Edidiong Chimezie?" Edidiong paused, seriously considering. "I'm finding out which parts of me were always mine, not borrowed." "Good," Adanna said, voice firm like iron wrapped in velvet. "That man didn't break you, Eddie. He exposed his own emptiness. And the stranger who told you? He didn't wound you, he handed you a mirror. What you do with the reflection is yours alone." They talked a little longer, practical things, money, safety, next steps. When they hung up at 2 a.m. Seoul time, Edidiong lay back on the bed cover and stared at the ceiling. She made a quiet list in her head of what came next. By 7 a.m., she had found a studio apartment online. Hongdae, small, south-facing windows, bare white walls. A narrow street below where an Ajumma sold hotdog and fresh mandu every morning. The photos showed light pouring in like forgiveness. She sent the deposit from her personal account, the one Damian had never touched, the one she'd quietly maintained since Atlanta like a woman who, deep down, had always kept one foot ready to walk. The landlord replied within the hour. Keys available that afternoon. She blocked Damian on everything. Phone, email, KakaoTalk, Instagram, WhatsApp. Every digital door bolted, every window sealed. She did it methodically, one account at a time, the way you close shutters after a storm. Not in panic, but with the calm knowledge that the weather had changed, and now she decided what entered. Then she went out, bought film, 3 rolls of black and white, a new 50mm lens that felt solid and hers. Carried the paper bag back through Hongdae's waking streets, past graffiti walls and coffee carts. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of street food and possibility. Back in the hotel, she loaded the camera, stepped to the window, framed the view. Morning mist on distant rooftops, a delivery scooter weaving through alleys, the first light hitting wet pavement. Click. The shutter sound was sharp, clean, like truth cutting through fog. She developed the first roll later that day in a tiny darkroom rental nearby. Old school, chemical scent, red safe light. As the images emerged in the tray, something loosened in her chest. The photos weren't pretty. They were raw, shadows long and honest. A street vendor's lined face, a cracked sidewalk reflecting sky. She called the series unfiltered. The second day was harder. Adrenaline had carried her through the first. Tuesday brought quiet. She woke in the hotel bed, and for 3 full seconds everything felt normal. The cedar smell, the hum of the city below, the gray soul dawn. Then memory landed again, full weight. She lay there and let it. Didn't fight. Mma Ekaette had taught her a morning ritual during the difficult year when Edidiong was 23 and life first showed its teeth. 5 things before you get out of bed. 5 things that are true, not good, just true. The ceiling is white. 1. The street below has an Ajumma selling hotdog. 2. Mma Ekaette is alive in Yuyo and she loves me. 3. I have money in my own account. 4. I have not lost myself. I am finding where I kept myself all this time. 5. She got up, bought coffee from a convenience store, stood outside in the cold morning air of Hongdae and drank it slowly, watching the neighborhood wake. This wasn't her place yet, but it could be. She could feel the slow way a city begins to fit around you when you stop resisting. Back inside, she opened her laptop, emailed 3 galleries in Seoul she had delayed contacting for months. During the months when Damian's subtle comments had made her ambitions feel somehow too loud, too much for the life they were supposedly sharing. She wrote the emails in 40 minutes, attached her portfolio, pressed send. Then she sat back and felt something unfamiliar. Forward motion. Not running, just moving. 9 days after the gala, on a rainy Tuesday night, Edidiong did something unplanned. She picked up her phone and texted Jeo-Sun Woo. She still had his number from the brief exchange when he'd sent a car to retrieve the shawl she'd left behind at the rooftop. She'd returned it the next morning with a note. "Thank you for the truth." He'd replied, "Keep the shawl." She hadn't answered then. Now she typed, "When you see something clearly for the first time, who is the photograph for? The one who took it or the one who sees it?" She stared at the words. Hit send before doubt could catch her. 3 minutes passed. Then his reply, "The photograph is for whoever needs to see it most. Sometimes that's the same person." She read it 3 times. Didn't reply that night, but she thought about it while she shot more film. Rain-streaked windows, neon reflections on wet streets, a lone figure under an umbrella. The second series had something different emerging. Not just shadow, but shape. Something alive in the frame. She called it, "What the Lens Remembers." 12 days after the gala, Edidiong was buying ramen from the convenience store on the ground floor of her Hongdae building when she noticed the Pojangmacha stall across the narrow street. It had appeared like they always do in Seoul after dark. Orange plastic tarp glowing under a single bulb, steam rising from pots. The smell of tteokbokki and oating broth cutting through the cool night air. She noticed it first because of the old woman running it. Tiny, precise movements, gray hair tucked under a scarf, ladling soup with the efficiency of someone who had done this 10,000 times. Then she noticed the man sitting at the far end of the low counter. Jacket folded neatly on the stool beside him, sleeves rolled to the elbows, eating slowly like he had nowhere else to be. Jeo-Sun Woo. Without the suit, without the rooftop aura. Just a man eating late-night street food. He looked real. Less like the shadow king of Seoul's real estate world and more like someone who carried quiet weight. He looked up. Their eyes met across the street. Both went still. The old woman. His grandmother, Edidiong would learn later, glanced between them with a sharp, unhurried assessment. Then she reached for a second bowl, ladled broth without asking, and set it next to Jeo-Sun Woo's. Edidiong crossed the street, sat down on the stool one space away. The old woman placed chopsticks in front of her and returned to her pots. "Your grandmother?" Edidiong asked quietly. "How many?" Jeo-Sun Woo said. "She would tell you herself, but she's decided to pretend she doesn't notice you. It's her polite way with strangers." Edidiong looked at the old woman, who was very clearly not looking back. "She set a bowl for me before I even crossed." "Yes," he said. "She does that." They ate in silence for a while. Rain had softened to mist. The street was empty except for a stray cat slipping between orange light and shadow. "How are you?" he asked. Not performative concern, just a question. "I'm photographing again," she said. "I hadn't shot properly in almost 2 years. Started the night after the gala." Something crossed his face, subtle, like a ripple in still water. "What kind?" "Honest ones," she said. "No filters. No posing." He was quiet. Then, "I'd like to see them." "Maybe," she replied, and she meant it. They finished their food. The old woman cleared the bowls without a word, then set down 2 small glasses of macchiato. Unasked, unannounced. Edidiong smiled at her. The old woman gave the tiniest nod, the corner of her mouth lifting. Over the next 2 weeks, Edidiong learned more about Jeo-Sun Woo. Not because he volunteered it freely, he didn't, but because Seoul whispers about men like him the way rivers carry stories downstream. He had built his empire from nothing, starting in legitimate real estate in neighborhoods other developers ignored, turning abandoned lots into value, seeing potential where others saw waste. It was, in its own way, a kind of photography, capturing what was overlooked and developing it into something undeniable. The other side, the part that made people lower their voices, was never said outright, just implied, the kind of influence that didn't need to shout. His wife, Chioma, had come from one of those calculated unions powerful families arrange. Love spoken in boardrooms, loyalty measured in mergers. They had been married 6 years. Strangers in the same house for most of it. Polite, careful, posing for photos at the right events, maintaining the right Gangnam address with the right art on the walls. What she had done with Damian had not been passion. It had been 2 people in gilded cages brushing against each other. Collision, not connection. Jeo-Sun Woo knew this. He had told her so in the separation meeting his lawyers arranged with surgical precision. "I'm not angry," he'd said. "I'm tired. I've been tired for years. This is reason enough to stop pretending." Chioma had cried. He hadn't expected that. She said she hadn't meant to hurt him. He believed her, not because she loved him deeply, but because she had never loved him enough to hurt him on purpose. She had simply loved herself more than the arrangement. And honestly, he couldn't fault her for that. One Thursday afternoon, Jeo-Sun Woo appeared at the small Hongdae studio Edidiong had rented to hang her growing series. She opened the door in paint-splattered overalls. She'd started mixing darkroom chemicals with actual paint for mixed media pieces. Camera still around her neck. "How did you find this address?" she asked. "I own the building," he said simply. She stared, then stepped aside. He walked slowly through the space. Didn't speak for a long time. Stopped longest in front of what the lens remembers. The largest piece, dark blues bleeding into translucent layers. A shape emerging in the center that was neither figure nor void, but unmistakably breathing. "What does the shadow in this corner remember?" he asked, pointing to a deep indigo patch where light barely touched. Edidiong felt her breath catch. That was the exact question she'd been asking the negatives in the darkroom. "I don't know yet," she said. I think it remembers the shape of what it lost, or what it never had. He looked at her then. Something human flickered in his usually guarded expression, recognition, perhaps. I'd like to fund the exhibition, he said. No, she answered immediately. Why? Because I don't know what I'd owe you. He was quiet. Nothing. You'd owe nothing, Edidiong. I'm not offering to own anything. I'm offering because I think the city needs to see this work. And because I think you need it to be seen. Those are two separate things that happen to point the same direction. She didn't answer that day. Later, alone in the studio, she called Adanna. He wants to fund it. And you said no. Why? Adanna's voice was patient, clear. Eddie, listen. A man who asks what your shadow remembers isn't trying to possess you. He's trying to understand you. There's a world of difference. And you, of all people, should recognize it. Because no one has truly tried to see you in a very long time. Edidiong stood in the empty space after the call, looking at her prints leaning against the walls like quiet confessions. She stayed there a long time, letting Adanna's words settle. 3 days later, she texted him. Okay, he replied. No triumph, just acknowledgement. She almost trusted him for that. Almost. The exhibition opened on a crisp Friday evening in late October. The small Hongdae gallery had been transformed. Jeo-Sun Woo's team had quietly handled the lighting, the invitations to Seoul's art insiders, the minimal catering. But the work itself, 8 pieces now in the unfiltered series, was entirely Edidiong's. From the first raw black and white print called Revelation to the largest central piece. What the lens remembers, arranged in the exact sequence she had agonized over for 3 days. She wore deep indigo, a flowing dress with subtle gold embroidery that echoed aqua ibum beadwork. Around her neck hung the thin silver chain Mma Ekaette had sent by courier from Yuyo with a short note. Wear this and remember who formed you. Edidiong stood near the entrance as guests arrived. She accepted compliments with grace, watched people linger in front of certain prints until she had to look away, because seeing someone undone by something you created is almost too intimate. Jeo-Sun Woo arrived at 7:15. He entered with Park Min-jun, his right-hand man since the early days, and 2 others who blended into the room like quiet architecture. Black shirt, black trousers, sleeves folded once. He found her across the space immediately. Didn't approach right away. Just looked at her, then at the work, with an expression that said, I see this. I see what you made. Then he moved to the nearest print and gave it his full attention. Edidiong was beginning to understand. This was the most sincere compliment he knew how to give. The disruption came at 8:45. She felt it before she saw it. A shift in the room's energy, like a cold current entering warm water. Guests near the door stiffened. Then Damian Hayes moved through the crowd. He looked good. Always did. Navy blazer, she once said, made him look worth knowing. Warm smile. The effortless way he occupied space like he belonged. He made his way toward her with the confidence of a man who had decided showing up was the same as being welcome. Edidiong had 4 seconds to decide who she would be. She chose herself. Eddie, he said, her name like it still belonged to him, leaned in as if to kiss her cheek. She took 1 clean step back. Damian, this is incredible. He gestured at the walls. I heard about it. Had to come. I know things ended badly. Did they? Her voice level, no raise. Because from where I stand, things ended very clearly. I just wasn't the one who ended them. His jaw tightened. I've been trying to reach you. I know. I blocked you. Eddie, don't, she said quietly, the word landing with weight. Don't come into the thing I built from surviving you and ask me to make space for your comfort inside it. I don't owe you that. I don't owe you anything tonight. Not access, not conversation, not forgiveness. In front of these people. Nothing. Damian's warmth dropped. Underneath was something harder. The face of a man who expected tears and got steel. He stepped closer. You don't have to perform for. He stopped. A hand appeared at his shoulder. Not gripping, just present. Like a wall announcing itself without force. Jeo-Sun Woo's voice was calm. Conversational. Polite in the most dangerous way. She's asked you nothing, he said to Damian. She's offered you nothing. And yet here you are, taking up space in something she created. I'm going to need you to leave. Or I can describe, in some detail, what your career in Seoul looks like after I make 3 phone calls tomorrow morning. Your choice. But make it quickly. People are starting to look. Damian looked at Jeo-Sun Woo. Looked at Edidiong. Calculations ran behind his eyes, weighing ego against consequence. Arriving at the only smart conclusion when Jeo-Sun Woo was the alternative. He straightened his blazer. Gave Edidiong one last complicated look. Something that might have been regret in another lifetime. Then he turned and walked out. The room exhaled. Jeo-Sun Woo didn't linger on the moment. He simply turned to a passing server, took a glass of water, not champagne, water, and held it out to Edidiong. She took it. Thank you. Don't thank me, he said. You had already handled it. I just held the door. She looked at him for a long moment. Then, surprising them both, she laughed short, real sudden. The first laugh in over a month. Relief finding somewhere to go. He watched her with something new in his expression. She was only beginning to name it. Later, after the last guests left and the caterers quietly cleared, Edidiong sat on the floor in the center of the gallery, shoes off, back against the wall. Jeo-Sun Woo sat beside her, not touching, just beside, which was its own closeness. Damian used to tell me I was too much, she said. The words came unbidden. Too ambitious, too focused on my work, too particular about things that didn't matter to him. He framed everything I cared about as a flaw he was generously overlooking. She paused. I didn't see it as erosion while it happened. I saw it as love, as someone paying close attention to my edges. Jeo-Sun Woo was quiet. Then, the people who love you correctly don't spend time pointing out your edges. They make room for them. She turned to him in the half-dark. That's very wise for someone who built an empire so no one could get close enough to see his. He almost smiled. I'm learning. I know, she said. I can tell. She leaned her head back, looked at what the lens remembers, across the room. Large, overwhelming, starting as a question and ending as something close to an answer. Do you know what I realized tonight? She said. Standing here, watching people changed by something I made. I realized I spent 2 years making myself smaller because someone told me the room couldn't hold me at full size. And the whole time, she gestured around the gallery. The room was never the problem. No, he said softly. It wasn't. They sat in the silence of the emptied space for a long time. Outside, Seoul moved on, neon and motion and 10 million private stories. Inside, just the two of them, the prince, and something between them taking its time to become what it would be. If this batch hit that empowerment sweet spot, the way Edidiong held her ground, the quiet way Jeo-Sun Woo supported without overshadowing. Drop a like. Comment below. Would you have let Damian speak longer? Or shut it down even faster? Tell me your thoughts. November arrived in Seoul in quiet layers. First the color. Ginkgo trees turning molten gold along Hongdae streets. Then the cold, sweeping in from the north with the certainty of a season that planned to stay. Edidiong wore Mma Ekaette's silver chain every day now. She video called home every Sunday. Not healing, that word still felt too clinical, implying damage was the default and wholeness the prize. She was returning to herself. to the parts that had waited patiently through 2 years of being loved incorrectly. On the fourth Sunday call, Mma Ekaette asked about Jeo-Sun Woo the way old women ask when they've already decided they know the answer. Not a direct question, an invitation. Edidiong had mentioned him once 2 weeks earlier in passing. Mma Ekaette had filed it away. "The Korean man," she said now, voice crackling over the line from Yuyo. "Tell me." Edidiong laughed softly. "There's nothing to tell yet, MMA. There's always something to tell. Your voice sounds different. Not happy different yet, but open different. Open I know from before." A pause. "Is he kind?" Edidiong thought of Jeo-Sun Woo sitting at his grandmother's Pojangmacha, eating tteokbokki at 11 p.m. Jeo-Sun Woo asking what the shadow in her print remembered. Jeo-Sun Woo handing her water after Damian's exit without making the moment about himself. "He's trying to be," she said. "For him, I think that's the hardest thing he's ever done." Mma Ekaette made a small sound, approval. "Good. Keep watching. Kindness that costs something is the real kind." On a Tuesday evening in mid-November, Edidiong and Jeo-Sun Woo sat across from each other at a small ramen shop in Hongdae they had quietly claimed as theirs. Low wooden tables, steam rising from bowls, the hum of other diners a soft buffer. He told her something he had never told anyone. Not his lawyers, not Park Min-joon, not Chioma in 6 years of marriage. He was afraid, not of business threats or the Shin network circling his holdings. He was afraid, he said quietly, staring into his tonkatsu broth, that he had spent so many years becoming formidable that he had forgotten how to be human. That the machinery he had built was so efficient, so armored, there was no longer a door that opened from the inside. "I'm afraid I made myself permanently inaccessible," he said. "Even to myself." Edidiong waited, didn't fill the silence. "And then you asked me about the photograph," he continued, finally looking up. "One question did all that." "It wasn't the question," she said. "It was that you expected an answer. A real one. Not deflection. Not performance. You just waited like you believed I had something true to say." He shook his head slightly. "I hadn't been waited on like that in years. I almost didn't know what to do." "What did you do with it?" "I answered," he said. "And I've been answering since." She reached across the table then and tilted her bowl toward his side so their chopsticks could share noodles. The small, domestic gesture landing between them like a quiet declaration. He looked at it, looked at her. Something in his carefully constructed composure relaxed, slow like ice thawing. They fell into a rhythm neither named, because naming it might force a conversation about what it was, and what it was still deciding its shape. They met at Halmani's Pojangmacha on Tuesday and Thursday nights, walked along the Han River on Saturday mornings, coats zipped against the wind. He sent her articles about photography exhibitions she might like. She sent him mid-process shots of her prints, unfinished frames, raw contact sheets, which he understood was trust, not casual sharing. One Thursday night, he told her about his father. They had been talking about something else. Then, 10 minutes later, it spilled out. He was 17 in Itaewon, watching his father make a desperate deal with people who didn't know the word mercy. "He thought he was protecting us," Jeo-Sun Woo said, voice flat, careful. "He wasn't. He was too afraid to ask for help from anyone who could actually help. So he went to the wrong people. It ended the way it always ends." He paused. "That day I decided I would become someone the wrong people couldn't afford to touch. I built the empire for that reason. And then I kept building because I didn't know how to stop." Edidiong was quiet. Then, "And now? Why do you keep building now?" He looked at her. "I'm starting to ask that question more." She nodded. "It's a good one." He reached across the counter then. Not for her hand, just close enough that his fingers rested near hers in the orange light of the tent. The space between them felt deliberate. "I don't know how to do this," he said. The admission cost him. She could see it. "I've been the person people are careful around for so long. I've forgotten how to just be in a room with someone." "You're in a room with me," she said. "I know." He met her eyes. "It's different." "I know," she echoed. Halmani said something in Korean from behind her pots, not looking at them. Edidiong smiled. "What did she say?" "She said the broth is better when people stop being stupid." Edidiong laughed. "Genuine, light, smart woman. The smartest person I know," he said. And the way he said it made her understand it was also the truest thing he'd spoken all night. The Abuja offer came by email on a Wednesday morning in early December. A foundation in Nigeria, one she had applied to 18 months ago, before Seoul, before Damian, before everything, responding now to an old inquiry she'd almost forgotten. They wanted the Unfiltered series for a 6-week exhibition in their new contemporary space. Spring dates, travel, accommodation, production costs covered. Full creative control. Edidiong read it 4 times, closed her laptop, sat in the middle of her Hongdae studio surrounded by prints and cried. Not from sadness, from the particular overwhelm of something you wanted so badly arriving after you'd stopped looking. She called Adanna first. Adanna screamed so loud Edidiong had to pull the phone away. "I knew. I told you 6 years ago when you sent that first application they'd come around. Didn't I say?" "You said." Edidiong confirmed, laughing through tears. "Are you going?" "Yes," she said, and knew it was true the moment the word left her mouth. "Of course I'm going." She told Jeo-Sun Woo that same night over dinner, not at Halmani's stall, but at their small adopted ramen place. She told him the way you tell important news when you're not yet sure what it means for everything else. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet, turning his water glass in his hands. "When?" he asked. "March. 6 weeks." He nodded slowly. Something moved across his face, the look of a man deciding how honest to be. "I want to tell you something," he said. "And I need you to let me finish before you speak." She folded her hands. "Okay. I haven't wanted to be known by another person in a very long time," he said. "I decided long ago that being known was a liability. The more someone understood what you cared about, what you feared, what made you human, the more they had to use against you. So I made myself unknowable. I was very good at it." He paused. "You are the first person in years who made me want to be less good at it." Edidiong said nothing. She had promised. "I'm not asking you to stay," he continued. "Going is right. Your work deserves Abuja. You deserve to take it home. But I want you to know." He stopped, started again. "I want you to know that I am different from the man you met on that rooftop. I'm still becoming that person. But I know the direction now. And that is because of you, not for you. Because of you." He looked at her directly. "So go. And when you come back, if you come back." "When?" she said. One word, quiet and certain. She watched what it did to his face. Something unguarded, unperformed, real. "When?" he repeated, almost a whisper. She reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "Didn't say, 'I love you.' They weren't there yet. They were building toward it, slowly, with attention and honesty and time." She said what was true instead. "I see you, Jeo-Sun Woo. Not the empire. Not the most careful person in every room. You. And you are worth coming back to." He turned his hand over under hers. His fingers closed around hers. That was enough. That was everything. February came to Seoul like a held breath. Frost on the Han River, bare branches against gray sky. The city bundled tight against the last cold snap before spring. Edidiong packed carefully. The Unfiltered series, now 9 pieces with one new, unfinished, rolled into protective tubes. Her Leica, lenses, journals, Mma Ekaette's chain and bracelet. Everything unmistakably hers. She flew out on a Thursday morning. The airport was quiet, early light slanting through glass. Jeo-Sun Woo drove her himself. No driver, no security detail. Just him in a dark coat. The comfortable silence that had become their language. They had said most of what needed saying the night before at Halmoni's Pojangmacha. The old woman had made everything Edidiong liked. Tteokbokki extra spicy, fish cake soup, a small plate of japchae she'd never seen on the regular menu and suspected was made specially for the occasion. Halmoni hadn't said much. She kept refilling Edidiong's bowl without asking, which was its own kind of eloquence. When it was time to leave, Halmoni came around the counter, took Edidiong's hands in both of hers, small, rough, warm from years at the stove. She spoke in Korean, low and direct, eyes locked on Edidiong's. Edidiong looked at Jeo-Sun Woo. What did she say? His voice wasn't entirely steady. She said, "You are already family. Come back soon, so we don't have to miss you too long." Edidiong had held herself together through the gala, the packing, the exhibition, Damian's appearance. But standing there with Halmoni's hands holding hers, she felt her eyes brighten. She didn't fight it. A single tear slipped, then another. "Tell her," she started, then stopped, tried again. "Tell her I already know I'm coming back. The only question is how fast I can finish what I need to do." Jeo-Sun Woo translated. Halmoni listened. Then she patted Edidiong's hands once, firm, trusting, and returned to her pots. At Incheon airport departures, they stood with her bags between them, terminal noise like a river flowing past. "Photograph something true," he said. "Always," she replied. He didn't reach for her. She was the one who stepped forward, placed her hand against his jaw, looked at him one last time, memorizing the unguarded version of him that existed only in private moments. Then she kissed him once, brief, certain, and turned toward security. She didn't look back. Not because she didn't want to, because she already knew what she'd find. Him standing exactly where she left him, watching her go with the patient certainty of a man who had decided what he was waiting for. Waiting for Edidiong Chimezie was perhaps the bravest thing Jeo-Sun Woo had ever done. On the plane, she thought about that patience. Coming from a man who had spent his life setting terms, controlling outcomes. She thought about Damian too, not with bitterness. The bitterness had drained somewhere between cold Hongdae mornings, Tuesday nights at the Pojangmacha, and the quiet way Jeo-Sun Woo made room for her edges. Damian hadn't been a monster. Monsters are simpler. He had been a frightened man who found her size threatening and her love a tool. She didn't forgive him exactly. She released him, which is different, harder, and has nothing to do with him at all. She thought about the unfinished print rolled in the tube overhead. Thought about Jeo-Sun Woo saying, when instead of if, the smallest word, the most important. She opened her sketchbook to a blank page. Outside the window, Seoul fell away, the city she had come to for a lie and stayed in for the truth. She looked at the white page for a long time, then picked up her pencil and began. The shape that appeared wasn't darkness this time. Not displacement or grief or the anatomy of a wound. It was something with warmth. Something curving toward light. Something she didn't yet have a name for, but recognized the way you recognize a feeling you've waited your whole life to feel. She would finish it in Abuja. She would hang it beside the others on opening night. Standing there, with Adanna on one side, fierce and proud, and Mma Ekaette on the other, small and fierce and smelling of shea butter and home. She would know its name. Beginning. Not despite everything that had happened. Because of it. Because the night the champagne glass shattered on that Seoul rooftop, a door opened. And Edidiong Chimezie had been brave enough or broken enough, which is sometimes the same thing, to walk through. She walked through. On the other side was everything she had always deserved. If this story moved you, if Edidiong's journey, her dignity, her quiet return to herself, the slow unfolding of something real with Jeo-Sun Woo, hit somewhere deep, subscribe right now and turn on notifications. We're just getting started. Like this video so more people find it. And in the comments, tell me, what moment broke you the most? The shattered glass, the gallery confrontation, the when instead of if, or the airport kiss. I read every single one.